What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I have a total boss babe, juggles many things, multitasker extraordinaire. Her name is Amy Goldeisen. She is a growth and resiliency coach based here in Chicago. She's moved here from North Carolina. I'm going to have Amy, please introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what that means as a growth and resilience coach, because I love that. And I know that you're all about empowering women. So let's hear
it. Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been kind of a lifelong journey in the making. I mean, it started out with a really traumatic, abusive childhood and abandonment by my mother. Just you name it, it probably happened. And at a very young age, I, kind of was able to just start observing trends and patterns in the world around me. And I had some older sisters. They were my half sisters. And so they were quite a bit older than me. And one of my sisters, she had a lot of the same circumstances, and she took that very, very hard. Okay. And she ended up addicted to heroin and ultimately ended up overdosing and left behind 3 little girls. My other sister, she was the complete opposite. She didn't let the circumstance define her. She chose to, deal with it in healthy ways. And she went on to be successful and she has a really great life. She's lived, different places throughout the world and has done very well for herself. And so as a child, I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, right? And I'm just like, okay, same circumstance. That's the control. Yep. And ultimately there's 2 ways that this can go, and I have 0 control over my circumstances, but I have all the control over what I give, what I put into it, what choices I make is ultimately going to be the determinant of my outcome and my life. And so that's kind of where it started for me, where I started realizing that you can use your mind to actively reframe your perspective and your experience and how you're experiencing things and what you're doing with those experiences. And so it's always been something that's been very personal to me and that I've been very passionate about. So over the course of my life, I've had lots of different things happen. But I pursued my degree in psychology, and I finished that and decided that coaching would be a better route for me because I'm not opposed to medication for treating, conditions. I think there's definitely a place for that.
Sure.
However, being more holistic, I think that it's overused, and it's a quick, Band-Aid that a lot of doctors, psychiatrists will throw at people because they don't want to take the harder route and do the work with that person to help them solve the issue that caused, them to feel the way that they're feeling or develop the patterns that they are in. Yeah. And so we're never really solving the problem in a lot of cases. And that's really sad to me, because people are just numbing instead of really healing.
Yeah. Dealing with it. Yeah.
So, I personally learned a lot of things. I've went on my own healing journeys throughout my life, and, developing resiliency is something that has been invaluable to me and has allowed me to grow as a person, and it has allowed me to grow in my relationships as a mother, as a business owner. And I think it's something so incredibly important that people learn to cultivate, because if you do, and it's not easy, but if you do, you ultimately learn that life happens, bad things happen, we can't explain them, but when you adopt the belief that everything serves a purpose, you can start to extract lessons and actually be grateful for even some of your most traumatic experiences if you allow them to transform you in a way that is ultimately going to benefit your growth as an individual. So long story short, that is it in a nutshell.
All of that.
I just, it's my passion, and I feel like it's my purpose here, so I have to share that with people.
Yeah. I also think that, I mean, I like how you did the analogy or the example of how your sister went, one sister went this way and the other went that way. And I think, people, if you're smart enough or if you're in tune enough, you have to decide which route you want to go. You know what I mean? Because like yourself, I've been through a lot, and I have not let any of those circumstances bring me down. Does it suck going through it? Do you want to just like crawl into a ball, or just like ball up and go sit in the corner, rocking back and forth, like, oh my God, or are you just going to say, okay, this is happening to me right now. I'm going to get through this, and I'm just going to keep pushing forward, because life keeps going. No matter what happens, no matter how you deal with it, if you go this way or that way, life keeps going, man. With whatever you decide to do. So you might as well decide to do the best thing and keep going in a positive direction.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you said in a positive direction. I think one thing that I want to clarify, because I see so much toxic positivity floating around, on social media. It really it makes my skin crawl, because people are like, positive vibes only.
Can you give an example of what you mean by that? I'm just
yeah. So you'll see a lot of posts that are like positive vibes only, or if it's not serving me, walk away. And I think that those are good sentiments to hold in a general sense, but I think generalizations can be really, really dangerous. Because is it good to have a positive mindset? Absolutely.
Yes.
But I see all too often people are like, oh no, I'm feeling a feeling. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling, resentful or whatever. And because it's not a positive feeling, they're like, nope. And so instead of dealing with that, instead of processing that, they stuff it down. Right. Because they have this belief that they have to have these positive thoughts and feelings only. And that's really dangerous, because when we do that, when we ignore those feelings and we don't process them, then we're not actually dealing with them. And we might be able to ignore them for a while. We might be able to create distractions from them, but eventually they catch up. And that's when really big breakdowns happen. And so, part of resiliency is not just getting to that place where you're okay again, but also sitting with your feelings, accepting them, acknowledging them, allowing yourself to feel them fully and completely.
Yeah.
While also having the impulse control to not take action on those feelings that's going to be negative or toxic.
Self-soothing, because a lot of people, I feel, do that. I mean, I know I've done that in the past when I was like feeling a certain way, and I would just self-soothe. I mean, I never got so bad. It was more, I've learned to like what you said. I don't take any medication for anything, because I really don't. Yeah. I think it's terrible. I mean, because you take one medication for something, it creates another problem for something else. And it's just a domino effect. But I think it is very important to feel those feelings, and I think that it's important to like work through it and do what you're saying, do the work to grow. And because it's not going to be the last time that you're going to feel bad or feel sad or feel angry, because those emotions are going to come up, I mean, depending on what's going on, but almost daily, you're going to get disappointed. And so you have to have a way, you have to figure out a way that's healthy to respond to those things. So I totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, people, I think, often confuse resilience with a lack of suffering. And that's just not the case. Like, you're always going to have things in life that trigger an experience of suffering.
Right.
But resilience is being able to get through that and keep going, to keep moving forward through that process and to heal. A lot of people will confuse resilience for avoidance.
Okay.
And they couldn't be more polar opposite, the
confuse positive resilience with avoidance. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because people, are so addicted to this idea of, constant happiness and being high vibe and all of these things. And those things are great.
I'm kind of guilty of that. Like but see, you know what though? Like I've worked so hard to get to this point where
Yeah.
I make a conscious effort every day when I get up, no matter what happens. Let's say you know, money is tight or something breaks in my
Yeah.
house, or you know, I have a fight with a family member, that no matter what happens, I'm just going to choose to, it's going to
Yeah.
be fine. I'm going to continue being happy. I'm not going to let it ruin my day, because it'll work itself out
Yeah.
one way or the other, or I'll work it out with my family member. I'll deal with the broken
Sure.
whatever in the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but the thing is that's resilience. You know, you've built these coping mechanisms that allow you to, you still experience those emotions,
Yes.
but you're able to get back on track and have genuine happiness. The problem is that when people lie to themselves, you know,
Mhm.
you can get back on track and feel genuine happiness, but a lot of people, if they don't do the work like you did, will, you know, avoid those feelings, not deal with them, and instead of actually getting on back on track, truly,
Mhm.
they will just avoid it and pretend or put
Right.
on this facade or distract themselves. And so there's a difference, you know. And I think it's really important that people are aware of that and able to differentiate between, am I really processing this, am I really cultivating resilience, or am I practicing chronic avoidance?
Yeah, no, that's really great. Those are some powerful words. No, and I think it's important for people to know, like, I mean, and then we'll talk about, you know, some of how you go about coaching, but
Mhm.
in your bio, you've healed and survived from psychological, emotional, and physical abuse. So you've actually have gone through some very traumatic things that could create PTSD, and
Yeah.
actually cause a lot of triggers on a daily
Yeah.
basis. So I always think that it's really important. So I'm a certified life coach. So I kind of went through
Mhm.
some of that training myself.
Yeah.
And I think that as a coach, whether you know your personal training, your dietitian or something, it's important to have some of those experiences so that
Oh
you
yeah.
can relate to your clients, right?
Yeah.
So how have you used what you've learned to create resilience in your life?
Yeah, gosh, it's been quite the journey and a lot of trial and error. When I work with people, I always try to first let them unload, right? Like empty everything out, because it gives me so much backstory. It tells me where they are, it tells me what they've tried, what they haven't tried, if they're consistent, if they're not consistent. It really um, points out where the work needs to be done.
Mhm.
Right. And so for me, when I was going through that process, I've done everything from exploring different religions, meditation, um, uh, you know, listening to different frequencies, using, you know, even like I was hardcore into like essential oils for like the, you know, the
Sure.
psychological uplift and effect that some of them have. I've taken a diet approach and been like, you know, it all starts with like how I fuel my body. I've done a lot of work to learn about reframing your self-talk and your thoughts, and you know, just generally how you perceive and experience the world around you and your belief systems and your values. And you know, there's just so much that goes into it. And so I think you know, when I work with a client, it's important to see if they've done those things, where they're pulled, and
Sure.
what techniques might actually work for them, what practices might work for them. Because I found that through my journey, there were some things that really, you can't describe it. When you find your thing,
Mhm.
it just, you feel so connected to it and it brings you such peace.
Sure.
But there are some things that just, you just don't have that with.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the biggest things is finding what's going to work for that person, but then also doing that mindset work and that reframing of perspectives, because you can meditate 8 hours a day
Sure.
and, you know, go and hang with the monks at the Buddhist temples, and, you know, and try to force yourself into this state of Zen. But if what's going on inside of your head is still toxic and is still feeding you these beliefs about yourself, that you're not enough, or, you know, you aren't capable, or you're not a good person, or you're this or you're that, all of that's not going to be effective. So it's really a holistic approach
Sure.
where you have to, you know, nurture your mind, your body, your soul, for it to truly be effective.
Yeah, I would agree. So I'll share something with you. So I was married. We talked about that, and my husband is no longer with us, and I just recently started dating someone, and he's got a crazy schedule, so I don't get to see him very often. And I'm finding that it is triggering, like, I have some abandonment issues because my father was a deadbeat father, left, and it's triggering stuff in me where I've fought with him, and it's so new, and I've already fought with him a couple times, and I'm like, we've got to figure this out together, because I don't, I'm kind of falling from a little bit, but I'm just like, but I don't want to ruin it because I'm having these reactions, and it's a lot. It's coming, like, I mean, I was with my husband for almost 20 years, and then I got my daddy stuff, so it's just like, my dad left me, then my husband passed away, and then I had a bad experience with the guy I dated, like, right after that, and it's just like, so I'm dealing with that right now. I'm learning to, and I told one of my best friends, I said, this is an opportunity for me to grow and to, like, try to address this so this does not come up anymore, because it's like I'm like having these mini freakouts and like emotionally. I mean, I'm not letting anybody know, but I'm like going through it, and I'm like, okay, there's my cat. There's Billy. So I'm going through it. I'm like, how do I like, I need to get past it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can relate to some of that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that, that you're so aware. I think self-awareness is a really big part of processing these things and growing through them, right? Because if we can't identify and see where we need to do the work, then we don't know what work needs to be done, and we don't know what we need to focus on in order to get from A to B. And so I think a lot of people struggle with that, is that a lot of people are in denial. They don't want to admit that there's something that they're doing to sabotage their relationships or their happiness or their finances, or it could be literally anything, where they're not feeling a sense of fulfillment. And it's hard to, like, it's really easy to blame external circumstances or blame other people, because I mean, that's easy. What work do you have to do if it's somebody else's fault or it's something else that's causing it? But when we look at ourselves, it can be a really scary thing, so a lot of people will never even get to that point where they do become aware of these issues that they have. And so
we have she's wanting to visit today.
And so, it's really important to do that, because if we don't learn the lessons that are being put right in front of us, we're just going to be given those same lessons over and over and over again until we get it.
Yeah.
And it's a hard pill to swallow, because doing the work is hard, and it sucks, and it doesn't feel good half the time,
No.
But what's on the other side makes it worth it.
Agreed. And I'm learning to, so here, I guess so I'm telling myself, I'm like, you know what, no matter what happens, like, I'm going to be okay by myself. So let's just say he does abandon, he leaves or whatever. Okay, I'll be fine. I can't sit there and obsess, because I feel like when you've experienced that kind of trauma and those emotions are coming up again, you start stressing, and it's just it just creates that cyclical effect, and then I have more of a, instead of a fighter, I'm a fighter, but when it comes to something like that, when it's emotionally driven, I'm like, I flight. I'm like, I leave. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Bye. Like, I can't do this anymore, And so then I have to go back and be like, I'm really sorry. And it's I don't want to cause that dysfunction, because, I'm just like, oh, okay, I have to grow past what's going on here, because whether it's him or someone else, it's going to come up again. And I gotta.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. It is very hard.
But I think the hardest part is being able to recognize that and accept it, you know, because at that point, once you do, you're ready to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother ballgame in and of itself. It's difficult too, because then you have to figure out like, all right, well, what am I going to do? What steps am I going to take every single day? Because consistency is so important to make that change last. It's really easy to say, I want to change this.
Yeah.
It's another thing when you start, you know, trying to create new habits. You know, it's not, our brains aren't wired to behave in these different ways yet. So we have to train it, you know, to react like that. And
I'm cracking my whip and I'm like,
yeah, it can be a daunting process, you know.
We're gonna get there. I have confidence.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm loving this, but I want to start wrapping it up here. Amy, why don't you share like when you take on a client, or how can someone reach you if they wanted to reach you to like use your coaching services? How can they get in touch with you?
I'm on Facebook all the time. I own a marketing agency also, so a lot of the work that I do is on there. So they can find me on Facebook. I have a personal and a business page. I try to, you know, be current on both of them. I'm on Twitter, Amy Goldeisen. So you can just pop my name in just about anywhere and I'll pop up.
Great. So I will get all those links from you and I'll put that in the description of the episode. And so when you do take on a client, what does that look like? So if somebody did reach out to you and said, hey, Amy, I love what you had to say. I love your methodology. Mm-hmm. What does that look like when they do reach out to you?
Yeah. So at first, I get on a call with them, you know, no strings attached, no charge. I want to get to know them, get to know what their challenges are, see where they're at, and ultimately kind of feel it out, because I don't work with everybody. And it's not because I don't want to help everybody, I would, but I've learned that you cannot change or fix anybody. So unless that person is there and they are ready and they are committed to change, their level of resistance is going to be way up here. And I can't work with that.
No.
I'm not going to babysit anybody. I'm not going to, you know, be knocking on their door, telling them, hey, you got to get up, you got to change. Remember, you got to change, because it doesn't work.
No.
So I definitely want to make sure that people are in a place where they're like ready to tackle this, and they understand that it's going to be work and that it's not going to be hard. I also like to get some backstory and, you know, make sure that I am a good fit to be able to help them, because ethically, I just, you know, I want to make sure that it's going to be a success.
For sure.
So that's pretty much the first step in it. And then if we both feel like it's a good fit and we choose to move forward, then I try to custom tailor everything. Because everybody comes to me with a different situation, a different, you know, they're at a different place in their journey. But typically we start with a lot of mindset and discussing the self-talk that they're having or the beliefs that they have about themselves. And a lot of times people don't even realize the beliefs that they have about themselves. You know, they'll say one thing, but if you start talking to them, you realize that maybe they want to believe that thing about themselves, but because of the things that they're saying to you, you can tell that's not really where they're at. It's where they want to be. Yeah. And so we focus a lot on that and building that self-esteem, building that confidence, rewriting any kind of negative beliefs and negative self-talk that they're having. And being really consistent with that is crucial, because we can't start talking action steps about how they want to move forward in their business. I work with a lot of women entrepreneurs, or how they want to move forward in a relationship, or, you know, just in their own personal development journey, because their mind's not right. Yeah. So we get the mind right, and then we go to work, you know, then we start taking action and helping them get that transformation to get them where they want to be. You know, we set the goals and we make it happen. Yeah, so
I love that. You're awesome. Oh my gosh, we'll have to definitely do this again. So I want to just thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And just, is there any last piece of wisdom you'd like to leave for the audience?
It's never too late. It's never too late to make a change. Everybody can change, but you have to decide and commit that that's what you're going to do.
Love
but
it.
it's never too late. So I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I'm too old for that, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yes, you can.
Yep. Totally agree.
Gotta commit.
I
So
love it. Yes. All right.
yeah.
Well, I'll definitely be having you back. We'll have to get an update on all the good stuff you've got going on. But you guys, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free, and you have to commit. But I want to thank you for joining. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I'll be back with more dynamic guests very soon.